Welcome to the Lost Signals Discusses Film and TV. Using the revolutionary Manzur-Amosi Thurlow scale,
or MONS,
we scrupulously review these art forms with an emphasis on narrative structure. Join us for another entertaining episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lost Signals movie special, where we watched all of the Oscar films. We watched a lot of good films, so it's become a tradition where we watch a supposedly terrible film.
Again.
Yeah, so we did Manos, The Hands of Fate. We've done Gigli, and this year we're doing this year's Cats.
This year's palate cleanser.
Which is notorious for many reasons, which we'll get into. I'm Jonathan Ian Manzur, Meow, here with our version of Post Malone, Stephen Amosi.
Look it up, folks.
What do you mean look it up? Like, yes, everybody knows what... I mean, a lot of people know what Post Malone looks like. I got told that I look like Post Malone today, and now none of you can ever get it out of your heads again. Thank you, Ian, for bringing this up.
You're welcome.
Meow. I'm moving on.
Scott Thurlow.
You won't declaw me, Meow.
And the magical Mr. Christopher Morgan.
Christopoulos.
I sat on my tail, Meow.
I guess I will start with the log line. This film was a real catastrophe, wasn't it, guys?
Oh, well.
All right. Steve, would you like to start with the plot?
Yes. A lot of cats sing a lot of songs, and they kind of have some kind of story, but I don't really understand what it was.
If you want, I can take over.
If you please.
So, this is based off of poems by T.S. Eliot.
It is.
And the film itself, which is a vehicle for Andrew Lloyd Webber's music, is a series of vignettes about this, I guess, street gang of cats.
Subsection of weird cats.
Yeah. And a new cat comes in who's being thrown out and is trying to join the gang of sorts, meeting all the people there. But meanwhile, this is also a really complex religious story
ritual
about
night. Yes,
them sending up, I guess, the one cats to be reborn as in a new life. And far be it for me to insult someone's religion, so I'm not going to go into it. But it is a...
Pardon me. Pardon me.
But it's on par with like Scientology and the way.
Actually, if I might, I just came up with this. This is basically Gangs of New York, but the gangs are cats, and there's only one gang.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Scott hit on the head when we were watching it. It's kind of like Logan's Run, the renewal. Except instead of like Capricorns, it's you get one that gets to go to renewal.
So it's literally Gang of New York, or
It's gang.
Cat of New York. Yes.
But that's basically the plot of it. I saw Cats when I was younger as a musical on Broadway. This has never been the strongest narrative in the world. I actually think the movie gave it a bit more context because you have different, in a sense, the broader scope of locations that they can go to as opposed to being on stage and something like that. But, however, it's still a it's not about the story. It's about small vignettes. I'm likely, and even the story that's there is very flimsy, so I'm not going to give it a 1.
Exactly. I mean, I agree. So, yes, in case you aren't familiar, the backstory is it's based on a bunch of whimsical poems that T.S. Eliot wrote for his like niece or something in 1935 or whatever it was.
Super jellicle.
They have to they have to then string that along to some kind of extrapolate into some kind of plot, which doesn't really work. So I was looking at a 0 or 1 for plot. So maybe I'll give it the basest credit ever because it does string you along. It's based on a bunch of vignettes that technically add up to some kind of story. So I'll give it like the softest of all ones ever, but I was going to come into it, give it a 0.
Yeah, I like the rest of you. I saw this when I was a kid. Saw it on Broadway. Had the story explained to me, and I'm like, so a bunch of cats are hoping to die to get reborn. This doesn't
Sure,
make sense.
just one of them.
But no, the only thing I really remember about seeing the show is the whole theater was made like a junkyard. So like, the balconies, so you were actually the theater was an extension of the set, and the cats, crawled through the aisles on the way in there.
The Winter Garden Theater?
It was the Winter, yes, it was
Now
the
and
Winter
forever.
Garden Theater. It was way back when in the 80s. But my whole point is, I am getting to a point. Much like me enjoying the spectacle of the show as opposed to the show, this movie was the same thing. The vignettes were really uneven. Like, you had some great stuff from like Taylor Swift, and Jennifer Hudson was amazing. But I agree with you. 1 is about what it deserves, because
for what plot there exists.
Yeah, but even like on the vignette level, even all the vignettes didn't work. I got kind of tired of it. They could have cut like half of them.
Yeah, I didn't. I guess I'm the only one that didn't see this when I was younger, and there really is the very barest semblance of a plot. I think I'm going to give this a 0, just because the quote unquote plot is only there to be a vehicle for songs, and the songs are the thing, and like,
sure, I'm not saying you're wrong about that.
It just doesn't really connect for me, and I'm probably gonna give this a 0. So I'm gonna say that now, and that's where I'm gonna come down on it. I am, as I mentioned to you guys beforehand, I am looking for reasons to give things a 1 or like positive scores. I'm coming in a very low score, but I'm happy to hear arguments for plot. I didn't get one that got me over 0, but I'm looking forward to the next one.
Nor do I think I can give you.
That's fine.
Because even the religious angle to it, it does feel like if this is a collection of short stories, this is the largest of the stories, but most of the vignettes don't really connect
Yeah.
to
They only
each other.
tangentially like reference that. Yeah.
And the villain of this is attempting to, I suppose, take out competitors for...
Or he's rigging the game.
Yeah, I'm not going to get political. There are events happening right now that match up to this. But, however...
Other fat cats are doing shady things.
Rats in the sense. But we have...
Anyway.
But he is attempting to take out people who he thinks are a threat to it. And you meet a couple of those people, but it turns out that the one he decides... the woman... or the cat who
half
no
human, half
one
cat.
thought was worth anything turns out to be one of the more tragic figures and earns the balloon ride up to heaven.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, there is a narrative structure to it. That's why I'm giving it a 1, because especially Idris Elba's character, who seems to be magic as well for some reason.
See, this is
The magic comes
this
and
is the
goes.
problem that I have with it.
But however, he is actually the thread that connects almost all of the other vignettes, and so there is a thread connecting them, and there is a narrative going on. It's just weirdly the protagonist has almost nothing to do
with the
with any
story.
sort of aside from being a vehicle for, as you said, a vehicle for songs.
Yeah.
So again, that's my argument for there being something there for a 1. It's just not good for anything above a 1.
The most threadbare thing, and I agree, that's why I'm giving it the threadbarest of all ones as well.
That is certainly the strongest argument that I heard for plot, and that's not a bad argument. You know what? I'll give it a 1. I'll give it a 1 for this. So I'll go to 1 on this one.
Cool. All right, Scott. Oh, by the way, I am determined to get the highest score possible because I actually thoroughly enjoyed this film. I know, shocker. Anyway, Scott, themes.
All right, so I guess you can go another on Hubbard sort of angle, I suppose. Like, if you invent a religion, then you'll be rich. Like, I don't know, like, again, I have to reference to what we said, like, what this entire thing is based on, what the original Broadway production and now full-on movie is based on. It's a magical realism, like, fictionalized world of
Christianity,
non-existent species of cats. Like, yeah, like it's almost like The Witch of the Witch and the Wardrobe, like that shit. Like, it's like vaguely like has Christianic overtones, I guess I'll say, but it's not really like a theme. Like, I don't know.
If we sacrifice the eldest in our society to achieve eternal life,
like
that doesn't seem very Christian to me.
It has like messianic overtones in a sense, like, oh, she's the most worthy one, like, but like what?
But was she? Why? Because she sang one song at the end of the movie?
Because of her memories.
Yeah, it only has overtones of it, so like it feels like it's like stapled on. Like, it has these possibly like vague themes to it, but it's not really. What is the message of Cats? That one of you can joke cats are better than dogs or whatever they say.
I would
at the end
actually suggest that Idris Elba's character,
cats are not dogs,
is an interesting portrayal of a satanic type character.
Sure.
Yeah, he's like the reverse. Like, he's the Dark Mirror, sure.
But I don't know.
But it's like stapled on there. It's just like there, just to string it along, I guess I want to say.
It's really cats rule and dogs rule.
Sure.
Is the theme of this.
I guess
but you don't see a dog. Like, that's the problem. Like, if you really want to fucking... I mean, I know you're kind of joking with that, but like, if you want to have like cats versus somebody, then you have to show who you're versing, I guess. And that doesn't happen at any point. Like, there is this insane, I guess plot, if you want to say that, like, to this that follows throughout, but like, Idris Elba's character is this, like you said, like strangely like satanic character, but he doesn't get any like meaty like parts.
There was plenty of meaty parts.
Oh well, don't get me wrong. I feel like I think at one point it was said like everybody wants to fuck every cat in this movie, and that's it.
Maybe that's the real thing.
But anyway, I'm going to leave off.
Chris has been scratching at the post.
Yeah.
I have been scratching at the post, waiting for somebody to let me in. Well, I did find some theme in this.
Sure.
It's a theme about standing up for yourself, because all those little jellicle bastards were all bullies. They bullied
Grisrelda.
And finally, the Victoria comes out and gives her because Victoria hears her hears her lament in the street. Like, nobody's
the main character cat.
Yeah, the main, our protagonist, and but she hears Griselda, and
wait, which one's Griselda?
Jennifer Hudson.
Okay, yeah.
Twice.
But the thing is, it's her that goes out there and convinces her to bring her voice in. In other words, there is a theme here of like standing up for yourself. Actually, when people hear what you have to say, maybe, they'll
immediately change their minds.
Maybe, yeah, in a fantasy. Or if that failed, Jennifer Hudson could have just gotten pissy and said "fuck off" to all of you, and But no, there is a.
So if you stand up for yourself, you'll one day be shipped on a balloon into the sky.
You'll be renewed,
or whatever that's a metaphor you think it is.
Hey, listen,
you'll be immediately sent away from the group.
I just like the idea of cats having this like cult-like religion where they just send it.
It's an interesting idea, but is it a theme?
It's almost like that Rick and Morty episode where they're sending people up into the sky.
Sure.
No, it's an interesting argument. I just don't. This is entirely a vehicle.
It's stretched too thin
for the music, and it's beautiful. It's powerful at times. It's very emotional at times. The music, that is. And the film too. I mean, Pam cried.
Pam did cry.
And the performances, like
we're calling her out right now.
But a good emotional arc or a good emotional punch does not make
not necessarily a theme.
Thematic
punch.
Agree. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, no. Like I said, I'm starting out with a 0. Just like whatever is there is only, again, stapled on, like, superficially attached just to keep it moving along. So I don't think it really has, like, a deep message or really anything quite to say other than a whimsical story about, Jellicle mystical cats.
This I was thinking of a theme. I was thinking long and hard because Ian said he wants to give this the highest score possible. So I figured, let me throw whatever theme I got out of it at you and see what.
It was a noble effort.
I think a stronger theme is perhaps making the audience realize that everyone's a furry deep down inside.
What do you think? What do you think, Chris?
Fuck a cat.
You gonna give it a 1?
Me?
Yeah.
For themes?
Themes?
You clearly made the strongest argument for themes, so I'm asking you guys. Are you giving it a 1? I don't think anybody else is.
I was gonna say my intention of getting a theme out there was to see if I could persuade Ian. No, I don't think so. Listen, I reached for that one. No, I'm gonna give it a 0.
Okay.
Gotta reach for the stars, man.
I was hoping Ian would convince us, so I tried to.
I'm trying to do this due diligence, but I will call a spade a spade. So
just not enough there. I can't.
Chris, antagonist.
Antagonist is McAfee.
Sure.
I can't remember.
This is a good start.
Yeah. It's Idris Elba, and he will, after one of the
John McAfee.
One of the all right. See, you've got a bunch of like the vignette songs, but they're punctuated by, James Corden and Rebel Wilson and Ian McKellen. So basically, if you are a named character, if you're a named actor, then Idris Elba's character will come and swipe you and push you onto the.
Well, Thanos dust you.
Yeah, but it's
dust you onto a boat.
But like he never became a threat to me because he only went after the big name stars. Like there were like, as I said before, there's so many. I got bored of like the little vignettes. And like any one of those, he could have disappeared at any time, but nope, only took the ones that had top billing. So, I honestly didn't consider him a threat at all. All I kept thinking was, oh, cool, Idris Elba. He's awesome. Okay, it's Idris Elba. Mm-hmm. I like his style with the hat and everything. Idris Elba looks great. He never once was like the villain to me.
Yeah, I'll back that up. Like, they wanted you to think he's a threat. He's like the devilish character, as you mentioned, right? He's like almost like, as a reverse reference to Mistopheles, like he's that sort of Faustian making you a deal and like trying to like double, weasel his way into being the chosen one, but never did he really actually do anything or impose an actual threat upon any character. To me, at least, he shows up here and there to sing a song and do his Thanos dusting shit like you mentioned. But that doesn't really change much. Like, the story goes on anyways, and the cats are doing whatever they're doing anyways.
It's not like he's taking them back in an alley and slitting their throats. He's putting them on a barge.
That would have been awesome.
I would have preferred to see that.
Perhaps it's because this is, from what I remember, very faithful to the play. So,
how's all
his part, or just the whole thing?
The whole thing. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it is kind of tame from the fact that this was a Broadway play, which does make him less of a threat. If anything, Taylor Swift, who was, I guess, his henchwoman, or she was his hype squad.
She was his Bond girl.
Or
His
whatever.
hype
No, this was Bond girl.
Yeah, she was his hype squad. That's what
She was.
She felt more dangerous than Idris Elba did.
Agreed.
And that's not just because she turned me into a furry.
Beyond other reasons.
But
sure.
Yeah, it's. I think it was neutered. No pun intended.
Of course, pun intended.
Honestly, it was neutered because of its Broadway play-esque
origins. Yeah,
but you can't give it a pass for that, and I completely agree. I don't think that so. Here's the thing:
they could have expanded.
I feel like every kid, like this show, and I guess that if it's close to the original Broadway show, I've never seen it, but like the movie is so concerned with giving everybody like a fucking 5-minute song that it never lets any character develop, and that really bothers me, especially in terms of like an antagonist. I never got from Idris Elba what I needed to get from an antagonist for him to be an effective one, and that's kind of where I'm going to come down on it. It's going to be 0 for me.
He doesn't even really get a song to explain his motives. I mean, I understand
It was
he's
vague.
attempting
Yeah.
what he's attempting to towards the end, especially when but I've seen a lot of theater in my time, seen a lot of musicals, and oftentimes you'll understand the motives,
The villain's
they'll
motives and
have
so forth and set up.
at
Yeah.
one song that sets them up. I don't think that it was developed in Cats that way.
I agree. It wasn't. Yeah.
Agree.
I think the protagonist, I think the actress, what's her name?
Francesca Hayward as Victoria.
She was fine in that role, but she is. It's weird because she's playing kind of double duty of being the outsider who enters a world and
She's your peer review
introducing you-
character.
yeah, introducing you to that world. But because there's almost no dialogue, and this is all told through songs and visuals. It underserves the villain, but also underserves the protagonist. And I think she did a fine job with what little she had. I didn't. You kind of rolled her eyes at that, but I don't think she did a terrible job. It's just that there was nothing for her to work with.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, she was the wide-eyed, naive, innocent, little cat, and literally dragged along through all this shit. Because of that, she's essentially your audience surrogate character, right? So she's your window into the Jellicoe cat world and what all the shit that's happening. But that means she has. I'm gonna steal a page from you, Steve-O. She has almost zero agency until maybe the very end when she has Griselda sing. But leading up to that, she's literally just there, wide-eyed, staring at all the shit that's happening as a la you are as the audience, sort of. Wrapped upon all the songs that are happening. But she doesn't choose anything. She doesn't, affect anything at all. They're all dragging her along. Oh, now let's meet this cat. Let's meet this and that, right? So, she did the best that she could with given, the setup for her character. But because of that fact, I'm going to have to give her a 0 just because it's the nature of within her role as within the narrative. That's what it is. It's not much there.
All right. This is kind of like the Ballet of the Nutcracker, where the girl who gets the Nutcracker basically falls asleep from the TV, and she is not TV, under the Christmas tree. Shows you where I am. But it's exactly what Scott says. The whole thing is watching all these other things play out with her as the observer and rarely gets involved. I mean, what I'm saying is it's a perfect framing device for theater because right, but it doesn't make her an engaging protagonist. No, absolutely. Yeah. I'm coming down on your side because even in the theater, she would even be more so the surrogate to the audience. So she was even less effective as a surrogate to the audience in a movie as it would be in a theater. So if you're seeing that, or if you're seeing the Nutcracker, in front of you.
Yeah, they're
similar, right?
She does have a slight arc in this, in that she finds a voice eventually and becomes part of the street gang after being tossed out of a car by the only human we see in this. But it's still a very...
It's superficial as hell.
It's interesting that you say that because I was going to say she has the most superficial arc in that you don't actually see her change, you just see the change. That's the biggest thing for me is there's no part of her story that's all right, here's why she's changing, here's how it happens. It's just all right, she's one thing and then she's another thing later, and you don't really get a lot about why this has happened or why she's become the way that she is, which is the biggest damnation for me.
Mr. Mistopheles has a much bigger arc than her.
He does because of one song. Because of one song. Yeah, that's all. That's all that she really needed was one song that really outlined what was going on with her, and it just doesn't happen. She just is one person, and then she's another person.
Cat. And even when she was first
I got to give it a 0 for that.
Even when she was first introduced, it's all the alley cats that are singing to her.
Yeah.
Yep.
Actually, I believe you asked her. Is this the first time she's speaking halfway through the...
Yeah, it was halfway through the movie, she sings a song. I was like, hold on. This is the first time we've heard from her.
For the rest of it, she dragged along and like just wide-eyed, like, oh my god.
I think she did like 1 or 2 more songs after that.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it was never like, oh, this is why she's changing, or this is why she's like becoming this more comfortable with these cats. It's more like, oh, she's more comfortable with these cats now, which is a big problem in terms of a character arc, and that's why I'm giving her a 0.
Well, continue talking with Sporting.
Okay. I'm going to say this. I don't think the supporting characters are all that strong in this, but they may be strong enough for me to give it a 1. There are a few that stand out. Mr. Mistopheles being probably the big one.
The best,
and
number one.
Yeah, absolutely the one that...
And the catchiest song.
The one that actually has an arc, granted based only on one, like, 5-minute song.
Let's call it 1.5.
But
they set his character up earlier, and that's his big moment.
But that is the big arc of any cat in this, any character in this movie. I think is like that's the biggest one. It's like the song about Mr. Mistopheles, like, and he's like completely impotent at the beginning of it, trying to bring back Dame Judi Dench from certain death, and Dave. I'm gonna get to that. From certain death, and at the beginning not being able to do it, and then he finally does, and she is very thankful for it. Now, Judi Dench in this movie is a very interesting character. She wants to fuck Ian McKellen so bad. It is very obvious. So obvious, in fact, that we named her Dame Judi Drenched. And I think it's pretty accurate. She was
it wouldn't be
very...
until she lifts her leg up in that one scene. Jesus Christ.
That moment makes all this.
She was so hot and heavy for Ian McKellen's movie. And I was saying, like, I think that, just to go like a little bit outside of the area that we're talking about right now, I was saying, like, we were trying to figure out why all these big actors were in this, and I was like, well, first of all, Judi Dench and Ian McKellen, they both got drunk together, and they were like, well, I'll do it if you'll do it. And like, there is this moment of like, pardon the phrase, but like animal magnetism between them in this fucking movie that's so insanely outrageous that I just couldn't stop watching. When Ian McKellen gets up there and does his song, and Judi Dench just wants to fuck his brains out, like, so obviously. I think that's the way it came off to everybody, I assume, but maybe people give me a hard time for this, but like,
meow.
Judi Dench gave him a hard time for it. That's all I know. Anyway, go on. I'll leave the rest to you guys.
I was going to say, can I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Please add on.
Because I actually do have I do have something very with the supporting characters. As I said before, you recognize the talent. Like when I said before with Idris Elba's character. Okay, but to me, he never became the character. Now, Griselda.
Who are you talking about?
I cannot remember the name of the goddamn cats.
Talking about Judi Dench?
All right, no, not Judi
Jennifer
Dench.
Hudson.
All right, I'm talking about the character that Jennifer Hudson plays.
Yeah, gotcha.
And I'm going to talk about the character that Taylor Swift plays. And I cannot remember their characters, but their character names. But watching them, Jennifer Hudson, took what they gave her with regard to costumes and so forth. And even though you didn't know the character's name, she became something. She had a certain amount of gravitas. Yeah. And of course, this song they gave her is the single that they put out for the show. And then when you to go to Taylor Swift's character, to build on Ian's point, she was the only one who posed any kind of threat. She had one of the better songs, and it really was kind of sinister, but I didn't realize it. I didn't see her, Jennifer Hudson, as the actresses, but I saw them as the characters. Out of everybody in the show, the two that I most consistently pegged, because I think they made it their own the most, were Jennifer Hudson's character and Taylor Swift's character. Well, James Corden and Rebel Wilson are great, and I love Rebel Wilson. To me, there's too much zaniness to really that distracted from the characters.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
I agree.
But
I'm laughing 'cause
but Deuteronomy, Dame Judi Dench, her character, I just couldn't see past that it was her. But these other two I bought into. So
McKellen nailed it.
The thing is, Judi Dench had such a strange partner. She played it perfectly, but it's so like this gets accused quite a bit of uncanny valleyness to it.
Sure.
And I think that Judi Dench perhaps had her lounging in that like
The most uncanny thing.
basket was what like it had such complex range of emotions dealing with Judi Dench.
She's a good actress.
it was. I was trying to ignore it, but
Well,
she was making me very uncomfortable.
Such a complex range of turn-ons going on.
I'll say this:
Both
for him.
disgusted
Yeah.
and
turned on at the same time.
surprisingly.
Yeah, of course. I mean, here's my answer. I'm giving it a 1 to secondary. The movie is called Cats. It consists of a bunch of characters playing cats. So if we give 0 to both protagonists and antagonists, that leaves all the other cats. And they make up the movie. So when each of them is singing a song,
That's also a good point.
so I have giving it a 1.
I'm not fully
Even
convinced
if it
about
was-
supporting it, so
All right.
if
Mr.
anybody-
Mistopheles deserves
Him with the bullet.
a 1.
Yeah.
One, he appears to. Also, I don't know the guy's name, but Judi Dench's major domo.
Consigliere.
Yeah.
He, not that he has much of an arc, but he's always a prominent figure throughout it, and I think he handles his business, especially when he's looking very strangely at Judi Dench.
Was that
when
the guy
she's addressing the audience?
The
at
cat
end of-
congregation.
We watched this movie with full disclosure. We watched this movie with two ladies, and I think both of them at some point were expressed.
They bang that cat.
Yeah.
Pam says
that was the guy,
meow.
that was the guy, right? That was who we're talking about. Yeah.
Sure.
They were both like, yeah, I'd fuck that cat.
But I'm just saying,
And I get it. I feel that way about many
you have
cats.
to give
in
the
this
cats
movie.
in Cats, the titular cats, a 1 if you don't give the protagonist and antagonist a 1.
I will give it a 1 for Mistopheles. I'll give it a 1 for Mistopheles. I think that he was probably the strongest part of the characters of this movie. Just for and it was just that one song. It's just the one song. I think it's probably the best song in this fucking movie. It's the one that everybody remembers, I guess.
It's the catchiest,
It's the only
poppiest one.
character I remembered from Cats.
Yeah.
That many years later,
And it's all based on like he's the one character that has like a lot of lines and like a lot to happen to him in this play. Him and Idris Elba's character are really the only two cats that have a lot going on in the movie, and he really nails it. Other than that one song, I would have said 0, but like that one song that he has where he brings Judi Dench back. What was her name? What was her name?
Deuteronomy.
You just said it. Deuteronomy, yeah. When he brings Deuteronomy back, it really nails it for that character. And if for nothing else, I'll give supporting characters
A 1 on
for
that front.
Yeah.
Deuteronomy, where God says to burn all of the fig
Okay.
trees.
I'm
But-
down with it. Let's burn all those fig
So
trees.
we all give it a 1, I believe, to the secondary. Looks like.
Yeah. I also going back
But I agree.
Giselda or whatever. I also thought her last song really worked for her character.
Yeah, she might have the second
So,
best
yeah.
arc, or maybe even equal with
Yeah,
Mistopheles.
they both have.
Yeah.
But they both have.
It's not
redemption
really an
arcs
arc
to them.
though. Like she is just somebody gets brought in. Like here's what I've always been, and they're like, go to heaven.
Yeah, but she
Her
gets
song
redeemed.
was about the fall. Like she had at one point, I believe, a fairly luxurious lifestyle, fell off, and then was pushed out by the rest of the clan, only to be brought back when she's discussing how
To be redeemed. Yeah.
her memories and the fact that all she has are the ghosts of her past left with her. I think that, like, overall, none of this is really all that complex, but there are two good redemption arcs in here.
Fair.
Enough to make Pam cry.
I agree with that.
Fair enough.
All right. So, Scott,
Keep bringing Pam into this.
well, she's sitting right there.
I like it. I like it.
Scott, talk about the 3 lines of dialogue in this film.
Alright, so yes, I mean, so I have 0 crossed out and I have a question mark in my marker for this question because I mean, on the surface, I would ship it all to style because it's composed of literal musical songs. Like, that's what the fucking whole thing is based upon. So yeah, there might be like 3 total exchanges in which characters talk directly to each other and then like bam, cuts to a song. Because that's how musicals go for the most part. And this one even more so since, as we said, it's such a threadbare like connection, like fundamental plot anyways. So I'm leaning towards a 0. I guess I'd be convinced of 1, but I would usually ship it all to style because it's composed of songs. And that's my argument for giving it a softer maybe 0, but there's literally almost no dialogue, so.
I actually think that I will make an exception to my general thing for this.
Okay.
Because since there's such a lack of dialogue in this, they have to express quite a bit through the songs and giving background for characters. After watching this, I know a lot about all of these characters.
So the lyrics then count as dialogue in a sense?
Yes,
what you're trying
I
to
think
say?
so. Because a lot of it is conversational.
I don't necessarily disagree with that
in their
either,
songs.
per se.
Yeah. And there's also the way that they, and I guess this goes back to the stage play as well, the way they incorporate, for instance, Mistopheles, and how they keep repeating that line to impart courage to him.
Right, it's
I
a clap your
think
hands if you believe kind of thing.
It is, but
Yeah.
to me it was effective. I actually think it was better than the stage plays version.
I'm not disagreeing with it.
Because they really captured that lack of confidence and the entire group coming together to impart that to
That's
him.
fair.
So I think that, and also like the 2 thief-like characters
Oh
in
yeah,
there,
the 2 little
they
like
had a good back and forth in their song, really detailing. So I think that overall I might give it a 1 for the fact that incorporating character building through
song, yeah.
song dialogue.
I just wasn't sure whether to ship that to style or not, but you make a good argument for giving it credit on dialogue. So with that, you guys go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
I was going to attribute the lyrics to dialogue as well. And I'm going to acknowledge that as somebody who has written lyrics, there's about 5, maybe 6 songs that I would ever allow anybody that ever to listen to that, because I just, as somebody who's very self-critical, but I'm also, the problem I'm having is, well, I agree with everything you say, Ian, and I was completely touched with memory and so forth. Part of me am trying not to dissect it as like somebody who knows a lot of Andrew Lloyd Webber's work.
Sure.
You know, I mean, it's just like I'm listening to it and like I'm throwing a shit ton in style, but part of me is kind of like more critical of it because this is not one of my favorite Lloyd Webber musicals. And I never got really lost in it, except for like I said, those 2 songs really lost me, in a good way.
I was gonna say
I got lost in them.
The music, yes.
So I don't know. I mean, you made a compelling argument for 1 because I was going to give it a 0 because I was sitting there thinking, God, these lyrics are awful, and I'm like, I'm so sick of hearing this. You know, it's just like the Mr. Mistopheles song. It's just like, I wanted,
It's so catchy.
but I know it's like advertising. It's just like, you know, it's very catchy. That's why you go,
Windows to the walls.
that's why you go see Cats again and again.
Now and
forever. Yeah.
At the Winter Garden Theater.
So Steve-O tried to
excuse me.
convince me because it's just like I deconstructed it throughout the whole time. So I'm like, I need somebody, you know.
Try to convince you of what, a 0? I'm probably gonna give it
or whatever you're going to give it. Yeah.
I was going to give it a 1 because Ian really made the best pitch.
you said Ian made a good point for 1, which I agree with. I think that you make a good argument, but I really see the song as, and I don't disagree. I think that the song should be counted as dialogue at the points where
It's relevant
it is actually a dialogue, as opposed to like just singing out your feelings, which is most of this song, I think. There are definitely elements of it where they are going back and forth, and it is actually a dialogue, and there is that there. I think that the only part where it really struck me as any kind of good in any way was the Mistopheles part. I'm not going to give it a 1 just for that one part. And I think that there are...
Not Rum Tum Tiger.
Not Rum Tum Not Rum Tum Tiger.
Not Mungo Jerry.
I can't believe you remembered the name of Mungo Jerry.
Because I think they did In the Summertime, which I love.
But yeah, like a lot of it is like nonsense, and then like the parts that aren't nonsense are like mostly not dialogue. They're mostly like just singing at the screen, like singing at the audience. A lot of it, and like there are certain parts where they do have dialogues and they go back and forth, but most of them are just not very compelling, except for, as I said, the Mephistopheles part. But like, yeah, I'm gonna give dialogue a 0 for this. I don't think that it was super compelling in terms of dialogue.
I'm going soft 1 for mostly largely on Ian's side, but not as heavily buying into it.
Okay.
But still soft 1. It's enough there.
I kind of agree. I was just trying to make the best pitch possible.
No,
It's enough there because
it actually worked because I'm sitting here thinking the most effective lyrics were the ones, were for Jennifer Hudson's songs, and it really told the story more. So it's just like, again, I'll be with Scott. I'm giving it the softest. I'll give it a soft 1, but I can't, in good conscience, say like, hey, I was affected by this person's story.
I'm not discounting it altogether.
And not include what she said.
That's
also,
3 1s and a 0?
Yeah, but
so.
also, Steve-O, we have given credit for dialogue for soliloquies or whatever, and that's what each little song was, so.
I'm fine with that, but those songs weren't that good.
All right, I agree with you. These, as I said, I don't mean
to your 0.
I don't mean to sound critical of somebody who, has the lyric, whatever, talent that, but by the same token, this weren't even his best lyrics.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but it wasn't like that is going to throw me over the corner.
Pam cried.
Pam did cry. That is not going to.
Well, if she was on air, she could change the score.
If Pam ever agreed to be on one of these episodes, she could tell her own story, but she will never be on.
She's looking up furry porn right now, so
terrified of. She's terrified of looking at a camera.
Anyway, Scott, no Chris on the style.
Style. This is a very weird movie, but but also by the same token, but by the same token, I got what they were going for, and I appreciated what they were going for, even if some of it was like the anthropomorphizing.
If I may, what were they going for? Can you explain it to me because I don't know.
May I go into this? Well, speaking of what they're going for,
Chris.
Here's one of the things I really divided on with this is that I love the concept of perspective in this, but they utterly failed to pull it off at times. And at times it worked perfectly. At other times, they almost forgot what scale they're going for.
Felt like Transformers.
Sure.
I'll expand on that in a moment.
All right. But anyway, sorry. That's what.
No, but see, that's the conundrum I have, because while I got bored with all the soliloquies and so forth, the one thing that kept me invested was like it's like The Irishman. Like I'm sitting there like just trying to figure out what it is I'm seeing, because like, except this was better done in a lot of ways because they weren't consistent with the perspective, but at least you weren't getting Uncanny Valley, with the weirdness of the Irishman did. This thing was.
Did you just say we didn't get Uncanny Valley in this fucking movie?
Oh, we most certainly did.
Oh, I got Canny Valley.
No, but I was gonna say this is very Canny Valley. But what I'm saying is, I did like a lot of the music. I thought one thing I did appreciate was the fact that they kept true to, like, when they used the electronic parts of it, they kept to the Moog sounds of the early '80s. They really didn't try to. They kept true musically. They kept really true to what it was. Try not to get on nostalgia, just to show you that this isn't just a nostalgia trip where it's like, hey, we can one up this. They really did keep consistent with the music. And while I did find some of the aesthetic choices completely baffling, part of the entertainment for it was like trying to figure out what was going on and what they were going for. So in other words, while I was deconstructing the lyrics, I was reconstructing what they were doing. and to be honest with you, it wouldn't, like in The Irishman, I would have been like, I was baffled by the aesthetic choices, but I would have still given Style a 1 because it was the thing that was like keeping my interest in the film. This was definitely a less cynical than that, because I really was trying to get what they were going for with this, So, I mean, I'm going to give Style a 1.
As you said that, it's interesting because you're right. It felt like it was trying to avoid cynicism here. It was actually attempting to create something new, and it didn't work out. Like, for instance, is that a lot of times they go barefoot. And sometimes they're clothed, sometimes they do, like, clothing for Judi Dench.
Sometimes I get chucks.
Like half clothing. So.
Well, she has that kind of
I got these shoes on
coat
sometimes.
on. Like that coat. It looks like a coat, but she's just supposed to be like a large cat with a lot of
a thick fur
on her. And so I get those kind of like choices they're making, and it worked for me at times. But then some of them wearing sneakers, and it's really just it's actually weirdly tracking when they're wearing clothes. I would rather them all be prancing around in their leotard.
Top hats and pants. Sure.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, but the fact that it was at least an honest attempt to do something new, I think and also I like the music. You said it's not your favorite. I prefer Phantom of the Opera, but there's a couple of good songs in there.
No, the lyrics is what I was saying. The music I was fine with. It's the lyrics that always made me cringe.
All right, so I'm going to back you up like this. Perspective, noble effort, didn't always get there. That's the most noticeable thing, like maybe to detract from style. Mm-hmm. But I have a 1, like I saw it a 1 instantly when we started doing a breakdown because you have to see it. Like it needs something that it's going to tie into my next question, I guess. But yeah, it's bizarre, but like in an enjoyable way, at least to me. Mm-hmm. They tried something weird and like it didn't always get there, maybe not, but at least it's something different. Like I really don't know how to put my finger on it, but I think it's more positive than not, even if it, of course, missteps. And I would say this, like, I noticed also the lighting I mentioned, definitely while we were watching it. At first, I was like a little off put, like, that's too bright. But it's like a lurid, like, fucking, like, cyberpunk style shit. Like, there's, like, neon signs, like, everywhere for the most part in many scenes, which I thought kind of, like, made sense, like, kind of worked for me eventually, like, as it went on. And, like, I thought the set pieces, like, were pretty good, even again, if the perspective didn't work. But at least everything else around it, the set design was fine. So, yeah, I don't know, man, like, maybe a softer 1, but I think you have to see what Cats looks like. So, at least that's what I would say. So, I'm going to give it a 1.
All right. I'm going to talk through this. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to give it yet, but I'm going to shit talk it first.
Okay.
So, here's the things that I want to say. The lighting, as you were just mentioning, like, yeah, it does have that, like, cyberpunky feel to it at some points, but, like, fucking why?
It's Cats.
What?
It's the
Cat's
what does
perspective.
that mean?
Cats are notorious for their use of neon lighting.
So that's my first point.
It's Cats Noir.
Like you guys mentioned the songs and the few songs you like. I would say I'm not disagreeing that there were some songs I liked, but I would say like 20 to 30% of the songs were good, and the rest of them I could fucking do without. Like I could cut out like 2/3 of this movie in terms of songs, and I'd be very happy with it. The Transformers thing that I mentioned earlier. So in the original Transformers, there's like parts of it where Optimus Prime is like the size of a small building, and then there's another part where he hides in a barn. And it's like, this doesn't make any fucking sense in terms of how big he is.
Yeah. The sense of scale was all off.
The Cats in this movie changed sizes so many fucking times, I have no idea what the fuck is going on. As you mentioned, they're wearing sneakers at certain point. Like, some of them wearing sneakers. They have these fucking human hands that apparently they fucking changed out later. Like, the choices in this are just so fucking baffling to me. Makes no goddamn sense. So,
I'm not begrudging you any of that.
in terms of the good things, there is, like, this weird sense of kind of understanding what he wanted to do with the costumes outside of the fucking sneakers that they were wearing sometimes. And, like, there was a sense of, like, I know what I want the cats to look like. And there's this... See, here's the thing. So many times when they try to do, like, surreal things in this, like with the rats and the cockroaches early on, I wanted to like those parts, but they were so poorly done, in my opinion, that it really took me out of, like, enjoying the surreality of the situation. Like, the cockroach thing, like, really bugged me. And
wait, what's not surreal about watching? What's not surreal about watching 2019 CGI composited with like 1970, 1980 with the cockroaches in front of Rebel Wilson? I mean, that really
I'm not saying
like,
I'm not saying it wasn't surreal. I'm saying it wasn't good surreal. Like it wasn't surreal.
I mean, I thought that was hilarious to me. It was just like, this looks like the Star Wars Christmas special.
Yeah, but it was like funny, like watching
You saying doesn't make it good
fucking
though?
terrible movie funny. Like not funny like, oh, you meant this to be funny. Like I felt like I was laughing at the movie, especially in those early parts of it, more than I was laughing with it. And I don't know if I can give it credit for that in terms of like, you were trying to make me laugh about this, as opposed to like, I'm laughing about this because you try to do something that didn't really work out right or the way you wanted it to. So that kind of bugged me a little bit. But I will say that when the songs were good, they were good. When the tails and the ears,
Tails, 100%.
the CGI in those was pretty solid. I feel like they
Spot
spent what was it, $95 million movie? I feel like they spent
Give or take.
like 3/4 of it on
Them
the
tails.
tails and the ears.
Agreed.
So I will give credit
And
there.
it shows.
They did get a couple people out who, like Ian McKellen. I think Taylor Swift did a good job. I think Judi Dench was given some really horrible material to work with at points, and at points like some good stuff, but like her whole final speech song was fucking awful. So like it's a really mixed bag. I'm probably gonna give it a 0, but
I got you for 0.
what do you guys think I should give it? Like you want to give one more final? Like I'm very on the fence on this one.
I mean, I think you should give it whatever you think it deserves, but I mean, I made my argument, like, it's just enough, like, it's captivating, even if it isn't necessarily the best, well done thing.
I think it was earnest in trying to do something new. And that lack of cynicism, I think, is what, because I've seen movies that use spectacle to mask poor, the flaws in the film. Where this was a faithful adaptation of a movie that narratively, of a storyline that has no narrative to it, and they tried to create a world around it
the best they could. Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes it didn't work, but I have to give it credit for
ambition.
Trying.
But like to your non-cynicism thing is, and please, this film was underdone. They all the ingredients there. It needed like another year to simmer. No, seriously.
In the oven, yeah, sure.
I mean, they really rushed the production on this, and it shows. But by the same token, and I know this sounds cynical, and I don't mean it to be, they thought they made a really good movie. In other words, no,
I'm not sure.
If they didn't, I mean, they did the best with what they could, given the time the studio rushed the production. But by the same token, if a studio thinks the movie's bad, they'll throw even more spectacle at it. I mean, like you said, it was very earnest. It was, in a lot of ways, unpretentious. It wasn't great what they did, and it really needed more time to simmer, but all the elements were there, as opposed to a movie that's lacking elements and they're just trying to throw shiny objects to distract you.
Some optimism, in a sense.
Yeah, I'm just trying to back you up the fact that I didn't think it was cynical at all.
I'm giving it a 1.
I would agree it's not cynical. I'll give it a 1. I'll come down.
Softerish. Wow, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Well done.
All right, and on
Bring
to
us
me
home
with the recommendations. I liked this movie. I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed seeing Cats when I was younger. And I don't know if that's because I've matured over time, or...
The cats haven't changed, just you.
Oh, Cats certainly have changed. Or because I have some deep finishes I have to look at, analyze a little bit. But regardless...
We all do.
Like,
speak for yourself.
I had a good time with it. It had a throwback quality to it, even though it was using a lot of it felt like something I'd seen in the 90s, but just with a slightly higher budget to it. And was it the best film? No, but it's worth seeing just for some absurdities, but overall, like it's a fine movie, and I had a good time watching it.
I'm 100% recommending it, and here's why. Somewhat of a mini thesis. Like art like this needs to exist in order to throw into the blender of the cultural zeitgeist. Like you need to have something to compare it to. So like even if you look at it in horror and about it, we need things like it's like the Plan 9 from outer space. It's like the fucking Ride to Hell Retribution. Like we need shit to compare something the rest of the other art to. It's like while it may be a misstep, while you might look back upon it in retrospective and be like, what the hell happened? Like, how does this even come to exist? Sometimes you need things like that to exist, and whatever medium it might be, and this one specifically there. So that's why I'm like sort of half academically recommending it, that if you're interested, you need to see it in order to have it be incorporated in your broad, again, encapsulating all the things you take in as consumers of pop culture art. So while not on the surface, like we said, it might not be the best narrative, but it is something that needs, if you're in the circle like us, in a sense, that should be seen because of what it attempted to and because of what it ended up being.
What's funny is every of these movies we do, I tend to giving a better score than the reputation that precedes it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I've seen awful movies in my time.
I've seen worse movies than Cats by far.
And like this is the kind of thing where it's like, it's not great, but I was entertained throughout it. Versus just a strictly boring film. Anyway,
here's one more thing before you go. My final push is that it's like The Room. It sits in that sphere.
They're both earnest in their way.
Exactly.
I was going to say, I agree with the both of you. Obviously, that I sat there as quiet as I was, captivated by it, whether or not I liked the song or not. It held my attention, and it is very earnest for all of its flaws. So, I'm giving it a recommend.
I'm gonna not give it a recommend. I don't think that you need to see this movie. I'm not saying it was the worst time I've ever had in my life, but it's certainly not something that I'm gonna rush out to go see again or anything like that. And the only reason that I saw this was because we were doing this podcast, and
sure.
I think that that's fine. I'm okay with having seen it, but I'm not going to tell anyone else that they should see it. And honestly, if you want to see a bad movie, you're already going to see this movie. I'm not I wouldn't recommend this to anybody who wouldn't see it otherwise by any means. So that's kind of where I'm going to come down.
That's right. So I would say, if anyone asks about it, it's not as bad as you think it is.
Exactly. I guess that sums it up for me too.
I was gonna say
it is as bad as I thought it was, but I mean that's fine. Everybody has their own fucking opinion on it. I'm not trying to take you guys down or anything, but
okay.
Like I said, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody who wouldn't already have been interested in seeing it.
Fair enough.
So with that,
Scott, Chris, and myself gave it a 5.
5 ball, yeah.
And curmudgeonly old Stephen Ramosi gave it a 3.
He gave it 3 meows.
I've become the old curmudgeon. Meow, meow, meow.
How times have changed.
And what does that equal out to?
4.5.
4.5? Sure. It's fine.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sure, I love that.
4.5 is fine for Cats, I think.
All right, well,
5 for fighting too.
I'm Jonathan Wilson. I'm more of a dog person here with Stephen Ramosi.
I liked Cats until today.
Scott Bowen?
I hope someone listens to this and decides to on Judy Drenched as your next porn. Good night.
Mr. Morgan. Oh, baby.
Meow.
Have a good one. Editing and engineering by Jonathan Ian Manser. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates. Or Mott's?